the feeling I've had before. I'm so beside you. You made my world not to the floor. I'm so beside me.
Yeah, how you feeling?
I feel like shit on that note, but I'm okay to hang out for a bit. Hold on.
The Born Contrarian, host of the Board Review, DGen Weekly. Thank you.
I mean, it's interesting because you don't really know anyone on a personal level that you meet on Twitter, right? I know a lot of people who bet on sports, and some of them are my friends, and some of them are like just total scumbags. And usually more often than not, you don't find like the best quality person in gambling Twitter or in the sports betting world. But nevertheless, there are a couple of good ones that you'll come across, and I get good vibes at least from MJ. So
I went off social medias for a bit, and then MJ comes up and he's like, "I want to start a little podcast." I'm like, "I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm out of the game. I don't like going on my phone. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not anything like that."
It's got to be like a mental cleanse. I've got friends who have left social media kind of when COVID hit. Everything was crazy and it was the fucking end of the world. And my friends that have kids, everything scares them, and it's like, oh, there's bad people out there. And so there's a lot of good reasons to get off, at least take a break. But I see the positives in social media, to be honest with you. I'm a people person. I love connection, even though at the same time I can admit that I fucking hate people. I still like connecting and meeting people, and then you just have to do a pretty good job of like trying to read, who you're going to mesh with and who you're not going to vibe with. Thankfully, there's that block button, which I thought I would never use. Yeah, I was real naive for that. But no, that's cool. My wife likes to do that shit, man. She'll like want to take a cleanse or just like, get off of it for like 1 to 2 weeks. But I don't know, at the same time, that's how I find out all about all the good restaurants, hotels, places to go, shit like that. Twitter for me is like, information is just incredible. And if you're betting on sports, I don't know how you're not on it, to be honest with you.
I appreciate you saying to get in on more of a personal level. That's like kind of what this is about, right? I met a lot of the bookie people and picket people over the weekend. It was great to kind of like see everyone in person and realize, everyone's outside of a Twitter page, right? But I definitely see the negatives sometimes. And there's some bad eggs out there. But you were one of the first people that I kind of came across. It kind of put me under your wing a little bit. And you've been on Twitter and you've been tweeting kind of like the way you've been tweeting now. You were tweeting like that back in 2019, 2020. So you were doing this from the very start. Where'd that come from? Why'd you start posting your pics?
Yeah, so on my personal Twitter, I think I started in 2010. The Degenerate, I think, was 2020 when COVID hit. So I work in real estate. When everything shut down, you couldn't show any apartments or do anything for like 2 months. So everybody started trading options, and that was cool. I thought I was going to be a millionaire from that.
Yeah, I did that too.
Find me someone who didn't. So when I was younger and I was actually what was I? I don't know if I had just graduated high school. Probably. I think I was in college, and I was just infatuated with sports betting. See, my thing is, I'm not even trying to make money on this. Like, I'm not trying to. People say that, they're like, "What do you mean you're not trying to make money?" Like, I'm not paying my fucking bills by taking Wake Forest -7. You know what I mean? I like the science of it. I like analyzing it, and I just kind of like being right. I like betting responsibly and not being in a hole and stressing myself out and ruining my life. Back in the day, I tried to start a website. I think it was like sportsmoneytalk.com or sportsbettingtalk.com or something. And I was like, this is going to be just a message board to talk about sports betting. But I was so not tech savvy. And I had a buddy who was pretty nerdy and pretty smart with that. And I remember I PayPal'd him or something like $100 and to help me like set it up. And I was like, oh, this is fucking sweet. I got my own website. And then it was just flooded with bots. Spam, bots, setting up threads. And I'm like, dude, how do I stop these bots? And he's like, yeah, that'll be another like $200. I was like, all right, well, fuck this. I'm done. And then, so I've always like in the back of my head had like, how can I make something out of this? Like, obviously the end goal is to make it a business and make money, generate some sort of revenue. So I was like, all right, I'm going to try just making like a Twitter personality and talk about sports betting and just kind of see where that takes me. Twitter's tough. I'm 36 years old and it's really hard for me to get going on TikTok, but I feel like TikTok is the best when it comes to the algorithms and to get in front of people. I got a lot of friends. They're just like, get off TikTok, man. It's China spyware, blah, blah, blah. In a few years. And so I was always like, all right, I mean, that's not the reason I'm not going to do it, but I've just like never had anybody that's been like, dude, you got to get on TikTok until Greg, my buddy, was on it. And he was like, I have to set an alarm for like an hour to get off TikTok because I just go down rabbit holes and rabbit holes.
He puts the child lock on himself. That's awesome.
That's exactly what he does. Dude, there's MJ, I don't know if you're on TikTok, building anything on Twitter, it's like a steeper mountain to climb. But I think what you get there, like the payoff is going to be really worth it. 1 million followers is cool, but engagement is what pays the bills.
You're starting a conversation that you're generally interested in, and then you're kind of just saying, I think other people will be interested in this as well. Like
Exactly.
it's the same. I mean, that's kind of like any form of entertainment, right? And then it's just the consistency. Like if I have a friend that's always going to show up that I can rely on for plans, I'm going to hang out with them more than I am the guy who's consistently flaking. That's a nice thing about gambling Twitter. Since I've been immersed in it for the last, couple weeks, the engagement is definitely there because it's a very opinionated area where everybody kind of feels like they have the metric or the key take that matters. I know you mentioned 1, you're in real estate, and 2, that you enjoy gambling because you like looking at those little stats and being right. And I see that I saw you had an anti-Jalen Hyatt tweet. I'm going to gloss over that. We'll get into that a little bit more later because I'm a big Giants fan. But you're definitely interested in NFL. I was wondering if you had to pitch me like you're pitching an up-and-coming property in a neighborhood, what's that NFL team this year for me?
That's a really good question. You put some thought into that. Also, I will say the one thing I do in this business, in real estate, it'll say licensed real estate salesperson. I don't sell. I don't like selling. In my opinion, if you have a product that's good enough, it should sell itself. If you walk into a house that's a house that you want, do I need to tell you these are the fucking cabinets and this is the bathroom and the ceilings are 10 feet high? Like, no. But you're right. That's a good way to pitch it. Like, people still want to know value. So what's an up and coming team that I think people should be excited about or maybe invest in? I mean, I think me and my buddies kind of like the Houston Texans. We were high on CJ Stroud last year and we bet him to win the Heisman. And I got to tell you, I was really disappointed. But I still like the team. I love Will Anderson. I like DeMeco Ryans, and I like Damian Pierce. I think that they did a good job spending on the offensive line. They got Robert Woods, a nice veteran receiver.
I'm a big Tank Dell fan. Tank Dell fan, and they got him with CJ Stroud. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not super familiar, but I'll take your word for it. The other one is the Atlanta Falcons.
Falcons. Oh, you're going to have to pitch me on the Falcons here.
So I've heard nothing but love for the Falcons in this division. And I think it's more so because their opponents are pretty weak. So it's like, oh, nobody saw that coming. I don't think everybody realizes just how many selections there are for the Falcons to win the NFC South. I was surprised because I was going to be on the Saints, but I backed off. Looked at them last year. I think Arthur Smith is a really good coach. I'm not sold on Desmond Ridder, but outside of Desmond Ridder, I like a lot of things about that team. They did what I love, and that's address the needs. And their defense was their biggest weakness last season. And they went out and they spent a lot of money on their defense. They signed, I think it was Jesse Bates from the safety from the Bengals. And the Bengals have like one of the best defenses in the NFL. So they made some moves. I like what they did. They got Jeff Okudah from the Lions. I mean, the jury's out on him. There's got to be a reason the Lions let him go. But I just like that. The Dolphins did it when they needed receivers for Tua. And they got, they drafted the Bama guy, Jalen Waddle, and they signed Tyreek Hill. I like teams that, do what, like, it's so obvious a fan would tell them to do. But I feel like some coaches and some front offices are like, oh, we're going to outsmart it. And, that's what everybody thinks we should do. But we're going to do something different. Like, John Gruden would always fucking do that. It drives me insane. I like the Falcons. I'm good with them. But I'm going to be in on the Texans some way, somehow yet. I'm not sure.
I love the Texans. I also think DeMeco Ryans can showcase a lot as the head coach there. He was a longtime player over there. They have a lot of homegrown talent. Tank Dell's a rookie wide receiver. I was at a bachelor party with it's like the hungover morning. We all wake up. We throw on YouTube. We're like watching prospect highlights. We see Tank Dell. And since then, he's just been my guy.
What college did he go to?
Houston.
Never heard of this guy. Oh, so he's a hometown guy.
Hometown guy.
Tank Dell, dude. Only you would know that.
Tank Dell's my guy. I think he's got a thunderbolt emoji in his Twitter name, which again, just that's trending
he's
up.
got speed.
That's trending up for sure. And the name funny. Tank and being small is cool.
It's like being huge
Yeah.
and being named tiny. You're the contrarian when it comes to gambling Twitter, thinking the opposite side and playing devil's advocate. Was this through trial and error of gambling? What kind of made you, jump on the other side of the public or kind of have that stance?
Yeah, I'm like I'm not like a heavy conspiracy theorist, but at the end of the day, I'm sure you
Let's
guys have
go.
watched. I'm sure you guys have watched enough fucking. Can I curse on this, by the way?
Of course.
Fuck yeah.
Netflix documentaries, listen to some podcasts. Like, people are out for themselves. You can only trust something or someone so much. And at the end of the day, you have to remember, some people don't know that this saying exists, but the house always wins, right? Now, you can win bets that are obvious or that look too good to be true. But we're talking about a long-term game here, right? Like, if you're just going to go to Vegas for a weekend and bet on some stuff, like, don't overthink it.
Mhm.
Just fucking bet whatever you want to bet and have a good time. But if you plan on doing this for, tens of years, which I'm going to do and for the rest of my life, I think you have to tell yourself that you might not be the smartest person in the room, especially if that room is full of other people like you that are all placing a bet, and there's someone else who's taking that bet. They're literally saying, here's option A or option B. Which one do you want? And if everybody wants option A, like, don't you think that's a little strange? Like, all I'm saying is just factor everything in, think about it. So I was at a bachelor party and we play craps. So somebody's got to be the house. We have 2 guys be the house, and it's, 8 of us that are playing. These guys love being the house because they typically win. Well, the same goes if you're at the house and let's say nobody's got access to a sports book and you want to book the bet. Like, somebody's probably going to be okay being the house too. And contrarians get like a bad rep, People think like, oh, you guys, you think you're so smart, or, fading the public. People hate hearing the phrase fade the public because it's like that they make it seem like we want people to lose bets. That's really not the case at all. If anything, we're actually saying like, hey, we respect and value the algorithms, the software, whatever the fuck is going on from the odds makers to set these lines where if we see, Georgia's only -4 against Ole Miss, and I'm telling myself, what the fuck? They should be like -10, and every Tom, Dick, and Harry is saying the same thing. Maybe somebody should just pump the brakes and be like, wait a minute. Maybe they see something. And it's not like, I'm not saying like, ooh, they're trying to bait everyone in. Some people say that too. Like, oh, the books are trying to trap everybody. Not necessarily. They probably just recognize something that we don't. You know what I mean? That gives Ole Miss an edge for whatever particular reason. So I just think people need to just check themselves a little bit before they like get super excited about making a bet that looks too good to be true. That's really it. And I don't tell anybody how to bet or what to bet. I just propose kind of as many ideas and factors as possible. I like everybody to make their own decision and be their own better. And answer your question, like what made you in life? I got fucking hosed so bad with the old stereo system out of the trunk in a parking lot. I was in college and I was living with a couple guys, and one of them worked at like Circuit City or some shit. I don't even know.
That's awesome.
So he knew, and we'd like just set up our apartment. It was, we were trying to be cool and like have the parties, whatever. We didn't have a sound system. And I parked and I'm going to the gym, and this guy and this girl walk up to me and they're wearing polos.
They got the embroider on there.
Fed.
You're like, these guys are, fed.
I should have known. Like, the shirts weren't untucked, the shoes were beat up, and but it was like, hey, do you're interested in a stereo system? Like, we got some high quality ones, blah, blah, blah. Literally walked to the back of the trunk. And they're like telling me they're like $500, $600, whatever, but they retail for like $2,000. And I'm like, I don't have $500 or $600, but I and they're like, all right, well, let's go to the ATM, whatever you can get. And I got out $220 from like fucking Wachovia. And I take the stereo home and I'm like, well, they look legit. Sweet. I got a $2,000 fucking stereo. And my buddy's like, bro, and he like looks it up on the internet and they're selling for like $180. You know what I mean? So I got totally hosed. I got hosed. And I feel like everybody's got to get duped in life once, some way, somehow. You know what I mean? I feel like
you
that
do.
Then you look over your shoulder a little bit more. You know what I mean?
You do. If you're going through life not realizing the intentions of others, and I think you said something really good before, where it's the end of the day, everybody's out for themselves. I think you made a good point too with the gambling Same thing with the stereo. It was like the same mindset, right? I'm down heavy on Sunday night.
You see the Chiefs playing the Colts. What are they? What were they minus?
Oh
Yeah, I see
half last
Chiefs.
year.
Yeah. Oh my God. I need a fucking stereo. We want to throw a party. I need to get out of this fucking hole right now. I need to bet Gronk first touchdown. Bad.
Worst case, I can sell it and make
Yeah.
like $200 or $300. You know what I mean? And then he was like, dude, you could have bought any fucking cheap ass stereo from Walmart for like $100 and we would have been fine.
It's the same feeling, right? It's the book saying, I know that people like overs. I know people like fun games. I'm a historical betting and under person. I will always say
Wow.
I like it. Comes from the same thing. I think more people bet the over because it's more fun. I think they just inflate that number a little bit. And I think there's more unders that come in. That's the entire spiel of the thing, but it all stems from, I know the book knows what people want. Those stereo salesmen knew what you wanted, and I'll sell it to you at a price. I'll sell it to you at a price that's favorable to me. Funny how it's like the same rooted feeling.
Ben Roethlisberger had just passed for like back-to-back like 400-yard games. Geno Smith was a quarterback for the Jets, and I was still like, my eyes were starting to open to the shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steelers were -3 in New York. And I remember when, like Monday, when the lines came out, my buddy texted me, who's a Steelers fan, and he said, I'm going to make the largest bet of my life on the Steelers. And I'm like, I look at the line, I'm like, dude, don't you think that's a little crazy? And then in like our group chat at the time, everybody's talking about how much you going to put on the Steelers, how much you going to put on the Steelers. Everybody's loving it. Like they're already counting their bet. They're like, oh, free money. Of course, Geno Smith and the fucking Jets, who were dog shit at the time, beat the Steelers. You know what I mean? So like when that happened, I'm like, all right, I'm fucking wide awake right now. My head's on a swivel, and I'm going to keep an eye out for these fishy lines.
It's pricked your ears up basically once you saw that. It's like, this is a real thing. This is cool to look at. And you're right. And it goes back to what you said before, being right on a side or on something that a lot of people probably didn't have. Like I remember one of my most memorable bets of yours was the Mike White multiple touchdown bet. I think you had 4+, right? And I was at that game and I was thinking to myself, I was like, who else in the world has that bet? Probably not many people. Those are the kind of wins that I think you value more just as a sports bettor. You remember those the most. My bet like that over my course of betting has been Rhys Hoskins' first home run. Do you remember in the World Series when he went 0 for 9? And I had DGen in my head like, there's no way he hits a home run. What do you know? He slams one and the rest is history. But yeah, those
the best?
They just stick in your head.
Aren't those just the absolute best, man? And you said in the beginning, you're not doing this to make money. You're doing it for the adrenaline rush of that moment. Mm-hmm. That moment of saying, I was not only right, but I was able to watch this in real time and just like, we hit on this? How the fuck did this just hit? You have a long odds. It's just an unparalleled feeling.
Yeah, the wins are cool. I'll tell you what, though, man, the losses are they're not cool. But that's why
they're not.
Betting responsible and within your means is so important, in my opinion, because
that's it.
To laugh the losses off it's so worth it. And I will never forget like the one that's resurfacing a little bit now because, and I guess we'll talk about the Giants at some point. Danny Jones is so hyped up this year when he was running towards the end zone wide open in Philly and tripped and fell. I had him anytime touchdown scorer. I'm a $100 unit better. So I sometimes I bet like 25, 50, but I was so confident I put $100 on it. I mean, a unit on a player prop like that is a bigger bet for me. And I felt great about it. Yeah. And I'm just watching it happen. And I'm like, I was fucking right. I was fucking right.
I want to hear your thoughts. We have an old tweet of yours. I want to see if the opinions are still the same. We'll show you after. But what is your thoughts on what are your thoughts on Dan Campbell and the Lions?
So the Lions, I think I've maybe faded the Lions. And I got to tell you, it wasn't very fun. One of my largest fades on the Lions was when Matt Patricia was the coach. I listened to an interview with him on Pardon My Take. I hated the guy. That was a win. Then I wanted to fade the Lions, not for any other reason other than they became so trendy. And so that was strictly like everybody's in love with the Lions. People like Dan Campbell. I like Dan Campbell. Just a little too much love. Yeah. I thought they were going to be like, the lovable losers, rip people's hearts out. And again, I can't really remember if I remember they were covering the spread like crazy. I don't remember if they had over under their win total, but now I think last year was his second year. And if I'm not mistaken, they started poorly. People were calling for his head, saying, "Oh, Dan Campbell, maybe the first coach fired." I always love monitoring the first coach fired bets. And then something switched, I want to say after the game in New England where they got blanked and they just started playing their ass off. Or they actually even scored a shit ton of points multiple times in losses before that. But I remember, right? Like even against the Eagles, I think.
Yeah, I think they started out like 1-6 and they were in games. Like it was just heartbreaking loss after heartbreaking loss for them. So you're starting to see a team kind of hang around. You're like, all right, well, they need to get a win pretty soon. And then they ended up bringing that string of wins. That we're kind of talking about.
That
right
to
now.
me, as I get older, I value coaches and not even just head coaches, coordinators so much. And I think they have Anthony Lynn, who's the former Chargers head coach. I'm not super high on him. I think he's maybe their offensive coordinator or something. But I love Dan Campbell, man. And I just decided I'm not going to fade him. I'm not necessarily going to bet on them to win games, but I think they're going to be competitive. I don't really know how I feel about Goff, but he's really proved me wrong. He's made throws. I can never really see a California kid leading a team like Detroit. I mean, Mark Sanchez did it with the Jets, I guess. They went to AFC games back-to-back. I think that was a little bit more about Rex Ryan, but I think Dan Campbell's the man.
Yeah, I don't know if that was a leading.
Fair,
I don't know if that was him leading them so much.
I was ready. I was ready to shit on him at every chance, and that motherfucker made play after play. So, but their defense was awesome. Rex was awesome. I do like a bet with the Lions, and I like Jahmyr Gibbs, the running back out of Alabama. Yeah, I'm a big Jahmyr Gibbs guy. And, you know, when teams like reach for players and they get criticized for it, I always think that there's like added motivation for the coaches or the front office, the GM to be like, fuck you, the media, the fans, whatever. We're going to show you why we got this guy. They think he was the best player in the draft. They got their guy. And the way they use their running backs, I think Jamal Williams is gone. He's on the Saints. I think DeAndre Swift is gone too.
Yep, he's on the Eagles now.
And, you know, they hammer their running backs. They run the ball. Totally. And also Goff throws to the running backs quite often. Yeah, he checks down like crazy. So one concern, I actually was on a Twitter space with a pretty popular Detroit Lions Twitter follower. He actually turned this into an article to talk about is Jahmyr Gibbs worthy of an offensive rookie of the year bet. The one pushback I got on that was that David Montgomery is a guy they signed who I think is a good player, and he might be like their short distance runner. So in the red zone, he might get the touchdowns. And I do think touchdowns go a long way when you're battling for rookie of the year, like Kenneth Walker last year had a lot of touchdowns for a while, and then he didn't score much in the last like 6 weeks. But that's what I like for the Giants or for the Lions. If I'm making a bet, I probably will. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is like maybe 10-1 or something for offensive rookie of the year.
Gibbs, I think, has more of that kind of boom potential of, you know, I'm going to house this thing 75 yards off a wheel route. You know, I think he has that in him. Now, none of them have the same upside as a guy that scored 5 touchdowns against Alabama, Jalen Hyatt. Now, I saw you hated on him, but you can't deny 24 miles an hour. That's pretty impressive, no?
So I want to just be clear. I'm not anti Jalen Hyatt, and I don't think I hated on him. I think I hated on the splooging that was being done over a Jalen Hyatt play in practice, which I've done to many players. So this wasn't necessarily singling out Jalen Hyatt. But I will tell you, you seem like a Giants fan. So I love Brian Daboll, but I am just so not a Danny Dimes guy yet. And for that reason, if we were on Shark Tank, I'm out on the Giants. However, I'm not putting my money where my mouth is because I love Brian Daboll. Danny Dimes played very well and much better in his offense, and we saw Josh Allen regress without him. I think that's a huge testament to Daboll. I'm not going to fade him, but we also need to look a little bit deeper. Look how the Giants ended the season. It was really, honestly, pathetic. I think they
with a playoff we playoff win.
Hold on, I'm going to get there in a second. I'm talking about the last you tied like the fucking Commanders. I think you beat the Commanders.
That's a divisional game. That's a tough divisional game.
Fine. You beat the Texans. Lovie
That's a
Smith
good win.
opted for like field goal.
Just your team for the upcoming season. We just beat them.
Lovie Smith is not there. That's a big deal. So Lovie Smith led Texans, the Commanders, and the mighty Colts with Jeff Saturday after that team was just done. I think they went like
Ellinger is a dual threat.
Okay, so I think they went like 2-7 down the stretch. It was really pathetic. They didn't really beat anybody important. Then they get the playoff win, and I watched that entire game. I was at the sports book in like Mohegan or somewhere in Connecticut.
Yeah.
I like the Vikings. I bet the Vikings. I didn't go super crazy on the Vikings, but I watched that game. The Giants were the better team by a million. They deserved to win. That Vikings defense, I am not even exaggerating, is one of the worst defenses I have ever seen in my entire life, and that's nothing new. They were bad all season. Their corner, Patrick Peterson, is so fucking washed. Cam Dantzler was terrible.
Jeez. Yeah.
Everybody was bad. Those guys were wide open. All they were doing was running crossing routes.
Yeah.
Then you follow that up. This is the bad thing. You follow that up with a performance in Philly.
We can cut this.
Daniel Jones doesn't even score a fucking touchdown.
All right, that game wasn't on Dan. That game wasn't on Dan. That game was on. Actually, he did miss the pass to Slayton right after we got back from halftime. It was 21-7, right? He missed Slayton. So that's on him. Like if you're a guy, you hit him right out of halftime. We score, we get a stop, then we're back in the game, baby. But listen, the Eagles had our number last year. So that's
Fly Eagles fly,
bygones
baby.
be bygones. Let bygones be bygones. We had a good playoff win against the Vikings. I think we got better. I like that you're not putting your money where your mouth is against the Giants, which means that the conviction's not 100% there. So I still have a little hope. And I really liked the Texans and Falcons takes. And you're going to be putting your money where your mouth is there, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm probably going to take Arthur Smith Coach of the Year. I don't really know how to play the Falcons.
I like that a lot.
I'm going to take the Texans something. I'll probably take them over wins. Or I don't know, just something.
Before we get too far, I'll show you your old tweet of Dan Campbell here.
Liar. I mean, engagements come such a long way.
Yeah, it has. It only had 4 fucking likes. Dude.
Yeah.
Like people don't like Dan Campbell. See, that's the other thing too. You want to, if you see a conversation or something you want to be a part of, that'll draw people in. Nobody really wants to talk about Dan Campbell or potentially even defend Dan Campbell in 2021. Now, if I tweeted that out, I'd probably get 35 people that are like, "You're a fucking idiot," which I am.
Invested.
So I was very wrong about that. They were not turds, and they I think they blew a lot of games and lost a lot of games. But at the end of the day, good teams win, great teams cover. That's how I look at it. They were covering spreads, so I respected the shit out of the lines.
I was happy with that. Like the Manti Te'o one was fucking crazy.
And you want me to tell you something too? I've met Manti Te'o when I was running a club in downtown Orlando, and the Notre Dame football team played. The whole team came into the club afterwards because the nose tackle at the time. I don't know if I should name any name. Oh no, it's not a big deal. He played at high school, which was one of our rivals. Met him, follow him on Twitter, DM'd him, and let him know, like, hey man, if you want to come in afterwards. This dude brought the whole fucking team. Manti Te'o comes in, I get a picture with him, and he introduces me to his girlfriend. So this is way back when. I didn't know anything. None of the other shit came out. Fast forward a couple of years, and it comes out that he had a made-up girlfriend. I'm like, wait a minute. He introduced me to somebody that was his girlfriend. Then when you watch the documentary, there was a part where they start like, she starts like calling him like, what are you doing? Where are you going?
Yeah.
That was probably around the time where he was like,
oh my God,
dating elsewhere. I don't know for certain. I'm not making any claims in terms of the timing, but I did think it was crazy when that happened. I was like, I met that motherfucker's girlfriend. You know what I mean?
They should have reached out to you for the doc.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
That's unreal. I was going to make a joke. I was like, I'm assuming his girlfriend wasn't there. It's been a great fucking recording. I appreciate you stopping by.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.
You've been a great guest. Yeah, it's been great talking to you. I think everything we covered has been pretty interesting. Getting to know you more and talking to you more of a personal level. It's been pretty cool. So I appreciate you.
Pleasure meeting you, man.
Likewise, dude. And we'll welcome you to Twitter and whenever you hop on. MJ, thanks for having me, man. Good luck with the podcast. I love anybody trying anything, so I'm always down to support. As long as there's good people involved and nobody's getting scammed or anything, I'm happy to support.
Thank you. Yeah, put your social security numbers in the comments.
Good luck, guys, and yeah, don't buy any stereos out of trunks in the parking lot of gyms. All right.
We'll talk
Sounds
again
good.
soon. I appreciate
Thanks.
All right. See you guys.
you. See you, dude. He's a great guy, man.
Oh, all right, bro. I gotta head out.
Word.